All right, folks. Duke Machado here with the Lexit USA movement. We are excited about our guest tonight. The program is going to New York tonight. And in matter of fact, we're going to be speaking with Laurie Rogers-Smalley. And that's how it is on the ballot. She is running for re-election for city council in Mount Pleasant, New York.
One correction there, Duke.
Okay.
I'm running for town board. Councilwoman on town board.
Town board. Okay, I'm sorry. The technicalities, but most importantly, you're going to share with us your thoughts on your race, why you're running. Introduce yourself to our audience. We're going to talk a little bit about the Hispanic vote and like what it might take to get Latinos to support you. We're going to talk about what's happening in Texas with the bailout, these Democrats bailing out on their duties and their responsibilities to Texas residents. And of course, we're going to talk about issues local to you. So welcome to the program, and go ahead and start by telling people about yourself and why you're running. That's typical, but let's just get it out there.
Thank you, Duke. Why am I running? Well, that's a great question, because this will be my third term if I'm so elected. We all know that the third term's usually the hardest one to win because most people have, quote, heard everything you have to say. However, what has happened in the last few years within New York gives me an opportunity to continue to work towards maintaining the values that I believe in and the Republican Party here in my hometown. My hometown is the place where I grew up from 8 years old up until my ripe age now. And it's important to me that we maintain the morality, the ethics, this close community contact we have with our neighbors here in the town of Mount Pleasant. The town has grown, and that's a wonderful thing. We're very open to anyone of any background that comes to live in our town. But what we're not open to is disrespect, disharmony, and people moving to the town of Mount Pleasant. Often they say they want to leave New York City and the boroughs because they don't like what's happening there. But we say to them, you're welcome, of course you are. However, don't bring what you're so dissatisfied about to Mount Pleasant and then try and change us. Come and assimilate into our community. Get to know us, understand us. You're picking Mount Pleasant to come to live to because of what you see here. Small town, good schools.
We do that statewide in Texas. The whole state does that. Don't come to the state of Texas and bring your liberal ideas with you. Are you kind of seeing that in Mount Pleasant?
Yes.
Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah, it is what I'm getting at. And you put it very plainly. There seemed to be in the last few months in New York from Governor Cuomo, there was a mandate that every municipality in New York explore how we can change our policing and our police departments. It kind of went hand in hand with that liberal attitude of defund the police. So every community was mandated to put together a committee of residents and representatives of the police department to discuss over months and months what could possibly change. What are the statistics of crime here in your hometown? And that report went to the governor. Well, I listened to each and every session, and it was interesting to note the naysayers who began at the beginning of that 6-month period turned around to realize that the money and the training and the education and the new equipment that we put into our police force keeps our residents safe. And there has been, I think in the last 10 years, one incident that could have been questionable in regard to police behavior. So we say to them, well, what do you see? And the response has been that the Mount Pleasant Police Department does a very good job and that people are well protected and there truly wasn't any need for the defund mandate here. Not in this town, not at this time.
So basically, the governor created this problem for the municipalities. Is that what I heard you say?
Yes, a lot of things happened in New York prior
Mm.
to that request. We have something called bail reform. I don't know if you have that in Texas, but here in New York, and affects every municipality. In the town of Mount Pleasant, which is about 47,000 people, of course, we have a police department within the town, and then within the hamlets or the small villages, they also have their own police departments. But if anyone is arrested, they come to the Mount Pleasant courthouse. Okay? I'm going to give you an example. If you're arrested on domestic violence charge, say a neighbor calls in and says something's going on in the house next door, we're not comfortable, please, police respond. And they go to the scene and they do find that it's domestic violence. And in those cases, it's often man against woman. They will arrest the man, bring him to town court. Okay? The charges will be read and he will be released. That's New York state law.
To
There
go
is
to go right back to the house to
complete what he
yeah,
began.
yeah.
And we see that
That's
time
just
and again.
It's like they want bad things to happen to you. It's almost like they want to let you know, hey, we could just release all these criminals if we wanted to, and then what are you going to do? You're going to have to deal with that.
Well,
Meanwhile, they're riding around with their security details and their bulletproof vehicles and everything.
well, we see this in New York, and we're fearful that it's going to spread throughout the country. But crime is up, not in Mount Pleasant, but if you read the reports within New York City, we're about 35 miles north of Manhattan. So when we look at the newspapers and we listen online and we watch the news on television, we see that crime is up throughout the city. There's a lot of lawlessness, per se, in New York City and the boroughs. Sometimes here in Lower Westchester County, in some of our larger cities, the same thing is happening. It's not happening in Mount Pleasant, and we'd like to keep it that way.
This seems like a plot of a movie, like where you're making the last calls from New York, uh, signaling to everyone it's coming your way. Get prepared. Uh, it's crazy.
Me, my religion is just an enormous sense of solace.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by go. You know the thing.
All right, folks. Duke Machado here, Lexit USA, and we are back talking about New York politics tonight. We have Laurie Rogers-Smalley. Laurie Rogers-Smalley. That's how it is on the ballot. We want to make sure we're clear. Everyone knows this because you need to help her get reelected. So we're talking before the break. We're kind of starting to get into the defunding police concepts that were going around, and some of the mandates that the governor had put out, PC police type stuff, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
making you evaluate, make sure you're not a racist, I guess. So,
Well, it was interesting to note that the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, of course, we know is a mainstay of the Democratic Party. And although I only serve on municipal government in my town, everything that comes down from the state as a mandate really affects what we're doing here. Again, to just go back to, we had to form a committee and spend professional time answering the questions that came from Governor Cuomo and the state legislature in regard to criminal justice reform, bail reform, and actually the removal of bail. So our police chief, our police officers, town supervisor, as well as volunteers that were selected throughout the town as a cross section of people that live here, spent hours and hours discussing and formulating the answers to the questions. All of this has been submitted to the governor. We haven't heard a response in regard to this, but we do know the good thing that happened here is that the naysayers against the police department within our own little town came away thinking we're very safe and everything is going well in the town of Mount Pleasant. And truly, it truly is.
So when you have an opponent, obviously they're
Yeah.
upset. They're upset about something you're doing or not doing. What's their big beef?
It's funny because the people running with me, we're all running for a re-election. The supervisor and my fellow councilman. We're running for re-election because we believe in the platform and we believe in the work that we've done. To sum up our platform, it's based on 3 different principles. My platform is intelligent development, financial security, and public safety. We live in a town where we have little real estate to be developed, but what we have to be developed should be done with an overall view of supporting the infrastructure and keeping taxes stable as much as we can. As far as economic stability, we've taken a real hit through COVID. Sales tax was down. One thing that did go up, though, it's quite interesting, is mortgage tax. Because where we live in Westchester County, 35 miles north of Manhattan, we're prime for those in New York City in the boroughs. There's a lot of urban flight because of what has happened since COVID. And the beginning of what we believe here is inflation leading to a recession. Many families have relocated here. Mortgage taxes are up. Houses are selling way over asking price. It's a wonderful community. It's relatively small in New York standards, and we know we have excellent schools and we provide good services. Public safety, we spoke about a little bit before. One of the things I'm so proud of, this is my 8th year on the town board, I'd be running for another 4-year term, is in those 8 years, we've been able to dedicate monies to improving the police department. And that means not only adding police officers, it means adding funding for education, training, equipment, new vehicles, and spending the time the police officers need to grow into the role. We're spending time and money to teach them more counseling skills, and that we hope will keep the peace here in Mount Pleasant as it has for many, many years. It's a wonderful community. Are we free of crime? Absolutely not. I don't think there's a community in the country or perhaps in the world that's free of crime. However, it's not something that runs rampant here. And statistically, we are a safe community.
It's interesting how you phrase that statistically. I don't know what qualifies as statistically safe. I don't know what that is. Probably murder rate might be one.
It could be murder rate. Oh, I don't like to think of that.
I know.
Um,
So I was going to ask you, the thing, what happens when people get in office and they're in like their third term, they get comfortable, they get to know all the people and all the processes, and that's kind of when like they start going bad. That's when I've got all this under control. I've This will be my last term. Um, you know,
Hmm.
the corruption that exists, I think, probably doesn't start out. It doesn't start out that way. But how do you what's your conscience tell you when you're looking at projects and funding for uh, contracts and things like that? I mean,
Hmm.
how does the city determine who wins those bids? And I mean, is that do you know what I'm trying to get at?
I know what you're trying to get at. We're at a time now where any real estate we have developers coming in to look at. Okay. It is a long, drawn out process. They might come and they might pitch an idea and they pitch it to the supervisor and then they have to pitch it to the town board. And we make a decision that you're either going over the planning board and then the zoning board, or perhaps vice versa, zoning and planning.
Mhm.
A lot of effort goes into it. We're actually having some developers come into town that, I have to tell you, came in and signed a lease with Westchester County to build a large corporate park or corporate area. And that lease did not have any housing in it. Now there comes a time when they're asking for the housing. So which way do we go? What do we do? I know that plans evolve over time. A builder or a developer's plans might change. And again, when this was first brought to us I think 7 years ago, the climate here was different. The economics were different. Everything now has changed in these last year and a half with COVID, especially here in New York, where we were hit very hard in this area of Westchester County. How do we do this? Again, it's a long process. We also have an IDA, an Industrial Development Agency, which is part of the process that a developer goes through, but is not really a government agency. So we have all these players in place, and then the final decisions will come down to what the town board has decided can go ahead and cannot go ahead. We've been very, very stringent. We've been very, very strict. I constantly listen to my residents, and I'm constantly, you can ask my husband, constantly on Facebook with emails. People knock on my door. If I go out and I listen and I really put an emphasis on hearing what they have to say, what they like and what they don't like, how they don't want to see the schools overrun with so many additional students that they cannot catch up and meet the needs of the students. We don't have the wide open spaces you have in Texas. It's a small community, 27 square miles, I believe, between 25 and 27, and the population of, 47,000. It's mixed housing. We have apartment buildings, we have single family homes, we have multifamily homes, condos, co-ops. But still, we have to balance what is good for the overall community before we say yes to a developer.
Mm.
Again, it's a long process. You could come in tomorrow and say, I'm going to buy that lot down the street and put in 2 homes, and it might take you 6 to 8 months to get the approval. So we make sure as a town board and a supervisor that everyone is treated the same way, fairly, and they have to go through the process.
Well, that's good. It looks like you've got a lot of oversight in place to prevent the bad stuff from happening. So that's good.
We do.
So we're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Hispanic vote. Or, I think we talked before. You don't have much of a Hispanic population there, but that doesn't mean we can't go after those few that are there.
Absolutely.
All right, don't go anywhere. Be right back.
Okay.
All right.
Would you mind if because I'm, you guys okay together?
I think we're
okay.
Duke. Do you think we're okay without Dave?
Yeah, Dave.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
We got it. Good to
He's
see
got
you.
work to do.
Yeah. Good seeing you, Duke.
All right, you take
All
it
right.
easy.
See you tomorrow.
All right. Let me know as far as
If you have to video something. Well,
Yeah,
we can.
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'll
Or we can
make something
tomorrow.
happen. I've
Okay.
got
Okay.
stuff. All right. Okay, folks, we're back. Thank you for hanging in there. So right before the break, we're talking about the Hispanic vote,
Yes.
and prior to the show, we kind of chatted for a little bit, and there's not a lot of Hispanic vote there. Is that right? Is that kind of what I was? Is that the right
You know,
interpretation?
that is correct, I believe. However, I have to say something. In my prior life, I retired as a supervising public health nurse. And one of the wonderful things about being a public health nurse is that you have the ability to go in and out of homes, in and out of communities, converse with people, understand them, and really help them meet that was healthcare needs. So I've transcended those skills. That's part of my skill set. And what I've found out is within my town of Mount Pleasant, we do have a Hispanic population. Sometimes they're overlooked. They're usually the people that work the hardest. They're the people that come and they ask me for help. And that's wonderful. One of the things my husband and I have developed along with the Knights of Columbus here in Mount Pleasant is a food pantry. And through that food pantry, we've gotten to know many of the Hispanic families here in the town of Mount Pleasant. And they adhere to many of our Republican values: hard work, dedication, family life, the old edict of a day's wage for a day's work. And that's the way I was raised. And that's what I see in our Hispanic families. How do we get their vote? By showing them, by example, that we're open, accessible, and that we'll talk to you. And I will help you if you have needs that you need to be met.
Well, yeah.
The population is growing. Population's growing in one of our communities. One of the hamlets in town is Sleepy Hollow. And I'm very familiar with it because as a public health nurse, I would spend hours there making home visits to see people that were of Hispanic background. Now I see some of the same families in our other hamlets, our other villages. Again, families that are family-centered and live in very, very the same simple values that my husband and I live with, the same simple values that my friends and other families here in our town live with.
Yeah, there's Latinos, Hispanics, or whatever you want to call us, I guess. There's no right one either. I don't
Oh,
think. I think they're all the same. I respond to both. But down here in Texas, we're soon to be the majority. But just like anything, there's new immigrants, and then there's long term, fifth, sixth, ninth generation Latinos who are here. They're not all the same. We're not all the same, and but there are some things that unite all of us that we do have in common. And I think we learned that the Second Amendment is, our right to bear arms is big with Latinos. We want to be able to protect our families that you were talking about. We want free speech. We want to be able to say what's on our mind and not be imprisoned for it. You go on and on. The value of the vote. People say it's not. It's not. We don't have a vote anymore. I still say yes, we do. But Latinos don't vote on a percentage. There's a lot of room for improvement with Latinos, and that patriotism is real strong with some, but it's not with others. And that's interesting because a lot of these new immigrants, they don't necessarily want to be citizens. They just want what America has to offer, and I guess that's okay. There are people who don't want to be Americans. Um, just they just have to respect America and Americans. That's what I say about that. But
it's very interesting to me that we have this discussion about immigrants and all. I'm just going to tell you a little story. Several years ago, my eldest child had an exchange student living with us for a few weeks during the summer, and then he was going to return to that young man's home. This young man and my 3 children shared the summer together. And one evening, my boys played soccer. So one evening, we had the soccer team over, and we had the 2 coaches here. And this young man went around the dining room and said to each kid, "Where are you from? Who are you? What's your background?" And the kids would say, "I'm Irish American. I'm German American. I'm African American. I'm Hispanic. I'm this, I'm that." And you know what he said to them? No, 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 no. If you were born in the United States, or if you came here and you became a citizen, you are an American. He said, "I'm truly the only immigrant in this room. I am from Italy. In fact, I'm Roman. I'm born there." And then out of the mouth of this 17-year-old came this statement: "If you Americans would all just say, 'I am American, but this is my heritage. I'm not downplaying anyone's heritage. I have my own.' You'd be a better country."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that can be altruistic. Maybe you're thinking it's high in the sky, but that's where we have to come to.
Yeah, I mean, I had that question written down word for word. It says, "What do American citizens of Hispanic origin want?"
Hmm.
It is exactly that. We are American citizens.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's who we target for voting, for votes.
Yes, absolutely.
We're not targeting illegal immigrants, so they can't vote. And to say of a Hispanic or Latino origin, my answer to that is they want everything. They want the same thing anyone else wants.
Of course they
Safe
do.
neighborhoods,
Safe, safe neighborhoods, the ability to go to
uh,
work,
good
the ability,
jobs. Yeah,
yes, to put your children in schools, safe schools, so that they
and and they want to know that you've got their back. You know,
absolutely.
that's big. They got
Hmm.
to know that you're going to be there for them when they need you. And what is that need? Well, in your area, probably not much, but down here, it's a massive need for.
Yes, yes, you do have you have a lot of challenges there.
Yeah, yeah.
You have a lot of challenges. Unfortunately, what happened during COVID is that the Hispanic population here in the town of Mount Pleasant are often the service industry workers. And if you think of us on the outskirts of Manhattan, I can tell you about one woman that I have befriended, a single mom of 3 kids. She's a great lady. I really enjoy our time together. She worked in a bakery, and a high-end bakery in Lower Westchester County. We're in Mid Westchester. And the products that they were making were sent to restaurants in New York City. So what happened during COVID? Restaurants in New York City were closed. They were shut down.
Hmm.
They had so much limitation that many of these restaurants have now gone out of business. What happened to my friend Maria? She lost her job because she was a baker with this high-end bakery.
Hmm.
What does Maria want? Maria wants to find another job because she's a proud woman and she supports her children.
Hmm.
And that's what she wants. Just like I wanted that when I was working full time as a nurse, to support my children, to help my husband, build our family, and educate our children. It's very basic needs. And to be safe. You're right. To be safe at home, to be safe in your own home.
Hmm.
That's what people want.
Do you seek industry to bring in for those jobs for people like Maria? I mean,
Yes.
you actively searching?
Well, it's interesting because the project I was just speaking of with the large developer who came in,
Hmm.
uh, it will be a wonderful project. Well, the issue with housing might be discussed for a while. However, it's a biotech firm that would come in and they would be they would be able to offer jobs for the entire job spectrum. In other words, um, industry professionals,
Hmm.
support staff, maintenance crews,
Hmm.
healthcare workers, kitchen workers,
Oh
probably
yeah.
child providers. That we're very excited about in Mount Pleasant because we know that jobs will be brought with this project.
Do
And
do, the, do these companies come in and play one city against another to try to get better deals? Are they rough and tough negotiators?
well, the person that is the developer behind this big project is a local person, and he's done extremely well in Westchester County. But he also he works very well with us.
Mm-hmm.
They don't really play rough and tough against each other or pit municipalities against each other. It's the role of the IDA, the Industrial Development Agency, that would actually work as, how can I say, a negotiator between the municipality and the developer.
Mm-hmm.
The way that perhaps we can save the developer some sales tax money on supplies that they
Mm-hmm.
might develop this project.
Yeah.
Um,
Startup. Yeah. Help their startup costs and yeah.
But in the same way, with this developer coming in for this particular project, the residents in the area will have improved water function.
Mm-hmm.
So it's working with the municipality and working with a private developer. It's a balance. That's what I can say. But the
Mm-hmm.
overall concept is it good for the community?
Mm-hmm.
This
Is there any fraud or waste or abuse? You know, that's what we called it in the Air Force. That needs to be dealt with, or everything pretty clean?
Oh, I can never say that everything's 100% clean. I have not been made aware of fraud or abuse.
Mm-hmm.
I am sure that, how can I say that it doesn't exist? How can I say, has it been brought to the mainstream? Has it made the headlines? Is it so significant that it's cost the town an exorbitant amount of money? No, because as a town board member, the supervisor would be required to inform the town board members if there was fraud and abuse, and we took a hit. In other words, a hit. Remember, it's taxpayers' money. I'm responsible for that. Every
Yeah.
single dollar. Everybody who sits with me on the board is responsible. If anything, I have to tell you, the town of Mount Pleasant, we've been prudent. Prudent is a nice word. I have to tell you, at times we've been cheap. Okay. We've been cheap, but then again, we made it through COVID without any loss of programming, without laying off anyone from any of our staffs.
Mm.
This year, we brought our community a 0% tax levy. In other words, for your taxes, the portion that you pay directly to the town of Mount Pleasant, it has not gone up from 2020 into 2021. We felt that we would be so diligent with working with our budget because we knew that a lot of the people in this community took a big hit with COVID. Not only the lower end people that I spoke about, the restaurant workers, some of the other service industry people, the high end professionals, those that used to commute to Wall Street that live in our town, engineers, healthcare people, across the board, people were suffering because of COVID. The economic downturn really hit us very hard. So we felt as a town board, our obligation was to give our residents a little bit of tax relief. And we've been very proud of that fact, that we've been able to do that.
That's good. That's real good. I think you know there's a governor's race here in Texas, and one of the challengers says that he wants to eliminate property tax. So when you buy something and you own it forever. It's not going to be taken because of failure to pay property tax. What do you think of ideas like that?
Well, that's an interesting concept. Um, in Texas, are schools funded by property taxes, school taxes?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and how do you fund your infrastructure and your municipal staffs if you don't have property tax?
I don't know. You know, I would imagine it's probably going to come in some sort of sales tax or something.
Oh,
They're going to have to make it up somewhere. I'm sure.
yeah, that's
It's a
the
lot.
that
It's a lot of revenue. It's a lot of revenue to make up.
yeah, yeah, that would be That's a multifaceted problem.
Yeah, it's a big statement. It's a big, bold statement, and everybody wants that. But how do you deliver that? That's a I don't know how to make that happen. Give you last minute to wrap up and say goodbye to our listeners and viewers, and
Mhm.
last opportunity to pitch for a vote.
To wrap things up, I think you've gotten to know me a little bit. I stand for strong Republican values. I appreciate the time I've served, and I am very humbled by the fact that I could possibly be voted in again to serve another 4 years. Why do I want to serve? Because I have work yet to do. I've spent these last 8 years really getting to know my community. I've really grown and changed. I think the role of local government is to transcend political parties and stand for the needs of the resident. This is me. My own Republican values are very strong, but I have to be willing to work with everyone of every background because the overall good of the people is what is important. I stand by that firmly. I'm here, I'm ready, I'm accessible. My residents know that. I won't let you down. I will continue to work. There are some issues I want to see resolved. I want to see the intergenerational community that we have continue. With that being said, it's imperative that we give our senior citizens an alternative place for housing. It has to happen. Many of them can no longer maintain themselves in their large homes, and we don't have the facilities for them to downsize to. We have to continue to grow. We have to continue to accept everyone that comes into town and offer them everything that we possibly can. That means looking at development in a way that it won't interfere with infrastructure, but will support infrastructure changes, that it won't overwhelm our schools, which are excellent educational resources for our children and families, that will keep families here economically. We can't have taxes that skyrocket because I won't and I do not want families to have to leave our community because their town taxes are too high. And we must keep people safe. That means maintaining the volunteer services we have in fire departments and ambulance corps, and funding our police so that they can be here and service the people and maintain our safe community that we take so much pride in here in Mount Pleasant. That's why I'm running. I'm here. I've been doing my job for almost a full 8 years, and I really would like your support for 4 more. Thank you.
Awesome. Laurie, thank you so much for joining us tonight and visiting with our audience, sharing your thoughts and ideas about government and the role that it plays in people's lives. Local government affects people locally, and the DC news and all that is maybe real interesting and eye-catching, but local government, school bonds, different things happening in your local city affect you immediately. And so my hat's off to you. It sounds like you've done what you're telling me now. If that's how you've been the first 8 years, I know you've done a lot of good. So
Thank you.
we will be paying attention to your race, and thank you, Dave, for setting up this meeting. And Laurie, thank you. What's the website or a Facebook page or social media? How do people find you?
It's going to be Mount Pleasant Moving Forward, okay? And if they want to, find me on Facebook. It's under Laurie Smalley. Or here's my email, LRogerssmalley@hotmail.com. So that would be LRogerssmalley@hotmail.com.
That's direct. That's as direct as you can get, folks.
Yep.
If you have a question, send it to her, and I'm sure she will respond.
Yes, I will.
Again, thank you for joining us tonight. Duke Machado, Lexit USA. We're out of here.
Thank you. Good night now.